Welcome, everyone. I'm going to talk about compositional generalization. I'm mainly going to discuss concepts and ideas today. There are more details in referenced papers if you're interested in. Hope you enjoy it. Compositional generalization can be found in many places. It is an important ability for humans to understand nature and generate imaginations. Humans has been showing this ability from early civilization. For example, Sphinx has the face of a human and the body of a lion. We do not see such a creature as a living animal, but ancient people could create it and we can recognize it. Humans can do this because we have the ability to recombine different parts of familiar things for an unseen object. And this kind of generalization is compositional generalization. We can use different faces and bodies for more variety of combinations. Sphinx actually also has wings of eagle, and the types of wings can be another part to combine. This means we have exponentially large amount of combinations with respect to the number of parts. So compositional generalization helps humans to efficiently learn from a small amount of training data and generalize to a large amount of combinations. And we hope machines also have such ability. There are three take-home key points. The first point is compositional generalization. I will introduce what it is and cover related concepts. Conditional independence property is the core property of compositional generalization. I will talk about the definition and explain how it helps the generalization. The last point is controlling random variable information. Here, for neural network, a random variable means a hidden representation that depends on input. This technique enables conditional independence property. I hope at the end of this presentation, I will have made all these points clear. More precisely, I will talk about the following topics. I will first introduce concepts and properties. This includes definition of compositional generalization. Then, disentangled representation, which is an important concept for compositional generalization. Then I will discuss the subjectivity of components, and I will talk about conditional independence property for compositionality. The second part is an approach to enable conditional independence property. The approach includes architecture design, training, and inference. I will start concepts and properties. So, what is compositional generalization? Let's first look at a conventional generalization problem. These images only contain input distribution for explanation purpose. In the left column, we have training dataset and a test dataset, and we assume the distributions of the data are identical. This means a main problem of conventional generalization is to learn a model working on correct underlying distribution and use it in test. So the smoothness assumption is important for learning the model so that there exists some general purpose visualizations, such as L2 visualization and dropout. Also, when we have more training data, we are likely to have better test performance. So in conventional generalization, more data is helpful and general visualizations are available. There is another type of generalization called out-of-distribution generalization. In this case, training and test distribution are different, as shown in the middle column. We emphasize that the test distribution manifold is not in the training manifold because the overlapping part is similar to conventional generalization. Here, the point is that the information for this difference is not included in the training distribution. In other words, we may think the test distribution can be given after training the model. This means the distribution difference information can only be given as prior knowledge, which is not general but is specific for the test distribution. So in this case, More training data does not help in test distribution. Also, general generalization does not directly help out-of-distribution generalization. Compositional generalization is a type of out-of-distribution generalization. It has multiple components, and the generalization requires recombining values of different components in a novel way. In the lower figure of right column, the a test sample is not in the training distribution, but when we decompose it to horizontal and vertical directions, the values of each component are in training distribution, and we can combine these values for a test sample. However, the components might be mixed together and not straightforward to separate them. This means we do not know the horizontal and vertical directions in such case. Then, uh, when the representation has these directions, we say it is a disentangled representation, and we will continue to discuss about it. A disentangled representation contains several separated component representations. Each component representation corresponds to an underlying component. When a representation is not disentangled, it is entangled representation. In these examples, the components are color and shape. The upper row images are entangled representation, where color and shape are in the same image. The lower row vectors are disentangled representations, where the left vector is for color and the right vector is for shape. Then we have several questions. Where the types of components are from? In this case, it means how do we know the components are color and shape? Another question is what's the relation of the entangled representation and the disentangled representation? We discussed the first question of where the types of components are from. This part is still controversial and maybe not straightforward to agree, but I'd like to share my ideas. The idea is that the components can be subjectively defined by humans. Sometimes it is common agreement of humans. This idea is also good for machine learning to discuss different components in the same framework. This means that we study a general way to encode humans' understanding of components to models. Though the components are subjective, they are not random. They are defined according to how humans perceive the world. This means that some components are from the real world. They may be factors in physics, such as rotation and position. They influence human perceptions, but humans are going to decide the components. In the left example, we have Sphinx and the center. Though they are both created by compositional generalization, they have different components, one for face and the other for upper body. Another example is color. In many occasions, people use primary colors, red, green, and blue, as components for colors. However, the essential difference is the light wavelength. There are three colors because humans generally have three types of photopsin proteins in the eyes. Each protein absorbs light with a particular wavelength. This means if an animal or a machine has four types of proteins, then they may have four primary colors. The primary colors are not completely subjective and not completely subjective. It depends on the object biological mechanism of humans. These are the examples of subjectivity of components. Since machines are not humans, they do not know what subjective components humans have. This means that we need a general way to encode humans' understanding of components to models. Then let's look at another question of what relation between entangled and disentangled representations. The key idea here is conditional independence property. We may first look at a question. What is in the right hand when we see there is a fork in the left hand? We do not know the exact answer, but the information of the fork tells something about what is in the right hand. We may guess the right hand has knife or spoon. Then let's ask the question again of what is in the right hand when we also have observation of the right hand. Given the observation of spoon, we can tell the right hand has a spoon. Let's continue to ask the same question by hiding the observation on the left hand. In this case, the answer is the same, and hiding the left hand actually does not influence the answer. This means the answer depends only on the observation of the right hand, though the observation of the left hand is related. In other words, given observation of the right hand, the answer is conditionally independent of other things. This property is called conditional independence property. Let's formalize this property and find how it helps compositional generalization. We consider two representations x and y. They both have k components, and each pair of components are aligned. Conditional independence property can be summarized as yi depends only on xi and written in probability. We then formalize compositional generalization. We consider a particular test sample with values of x and y. In training, each component value xi appears, but the value of x does not appear. This means the components are not marginally independent. When the value of xi appears, the value of yi has high probability. In test, the value of x appears, and we hope conditional probability of y is high. Note that training and test input distributions are different. The conditional independence property bridges training and test distributions. We first apply chain rule and use conditional independence property. When each of the term is high, then their product is also high, so the predicted conditional probability in test is high. We summarized the concepts and the properties. We discussed compositional generalization. It has different training and test distributions or manifolds. It requires new combination of thin component values. We also discussed its intangible representation. It has separated representations for components. We talked about subjectivity of components. We consider types of components as subjective, so we need a general way to encode component-specific prior knowledge. We also introduced conditional independence property. It means output component depends only on the corresponding input component, and we discussed how it helps compositional generalization.